and we're going to have a go at doing a ladybird. And we're going to do a bit of background, and we're going to do a bit of painting of the ladybird itself using watercolours. Now, I don't know whether you've ever used watercolours before, but they're a bit tricky. But hopefully together we'll, through this session, begin to get the hang of them at least a little bit. And basically see how you get on. And try your best not to worry too much or stress too much. Just see what you come up with, give it a chance, and hopefully by the end you'll feel good about what you've produced and feel like you've learnt a few things as well about using watercolour. Okay, so we're going to need our watercolour set. We're going to need some water, of course, for watercolour, and a brush, sort of a medium-sized brush, maybe a thinner one if you've got one, but see what you've got. And then a piece of card, so half A4, which is called A5. And it does need to be card because it needs to be able to absorb some of the water that we're going to put onto it. And then a pencil to do some initial outlines. Okay, cool. Let's give this a go together. Okay, we're going to start by doing a little bit of a border around our piece of card just to make the area that we're going to work inside of just a bit smaller. If you want to use a ruler for this, you can, but if you want to do it freehand, which means not using any tools like a ruler, then also you can. I like to work freehand myself. Don't worry about the border being completely straight, so we're just going to come along the top and in just a little bit, and then equally down the two sides, there and there. And then along the bottom, and we've just made ourselves a slightly smaller now rectangle area that we're going to work within. So when we're painting, we'll just come up to these lines that we've made now, rather than going all the way to the edge, because when you go to the edge, it can more easily get a bit messy. It's a bit more tricky, you've got more work to do, and I think it looks quite good to have a border at the end as well. So all in all, works out pretty well. Okay. Now let's do a diagonal line. We're going to come from the bottom left and we're going to go just up towards the right like that. Not all the way to the top corner, but just sort of up to maybe around there. Okay, so along that line, let's do basically at this stage a circle. Can you see the circle is halfway over the line that way and halfway over the line this way? The line sort of goes through the middle of the circle diagonally. We're just going to make it maybe that kind of size. Is that about right? And can you see with the pencil, I'm pressing quite lightly. I'm not pushing in really hard, and I don't need to and I don't want to, because at this stage I'm just getting a bit of an idea of the outline of the ladybird, but I'm not yet sure. And it's only when I'm really sure of what I'm doing that I'll then press a bit harder with the pencil. Otherwise, it's really difficult to rub it out and to change your mind. So when I'm sketching, I always start very lightly with a pencil. Okay, let's come up along the line to the top of the circle there. Can you see? But we're still along the line. And actually, so on that top right of the circle, let's do basically a bit of a rectangle. Kind of like that. And again, it's half on one side of the line and half on the other. So we're using that line as the guide, and our ladybird's going to be kind of walking up along this line basically. And we could have done it straight up, or we could have done it straight out, but actually both of those options are a little bit boring. And I think what we want to do here is create something a bit more interesting to look at. Plus it really develops your drawing skills. Okay, coming further up along our diagonal line, we're going to finish off with a square. And again, just keep pressing really lightly. So the square sits on top of the rectangle, but above it up there. Okay, we've got now our basic shapes for the ladybird. We're now going to use the pencil, and we can press a little bit harder now to do our slightly more confident lines. So let's start with the square. I'm going to just round off the two sides of the square there and there. Can you see I've just made those a bit rounder? And then I'm going to round off the top as well. So it's still sort of a square, or more of a rectangle, but it's just nicely rounded off now. Okay, I can make those lines a bit more confident. That's fine. Okay, while we're up in this part of the world, let's do a line coming out like that, and one coming out like that. So coming up and out that way, and then basically straight out there on that side of this is the head. And those are the antennae. Okay, let's come back to the next shape, our rectangle. So I'm going to do just sort of straight across there. Okay, but then actually here I'm going to go up a little bit that side. So pretty much whatever I do on one side, I'm going to do on the other as well. And we're making the whole thing symmetrical. That means the same both sides. It's like for us, we've got an eye on both sides of our face, and that makes it symmetrical. Okay, from those little bits out there, I'm going to actually curve backwards a bit there. Curve backwards a bit there. Can you see? So I've sort of taken off the corners of the rectangle a bit. That's what we wanted to do. And then down there, I'm actually going to cut back towards the body a bit and cut back again. Cool, that's about right. And then we'll just do more of a straight line there. Okay, once we're happy with those lines, you can do them in slightly darker pencil. That's about right. Okay, again, while we're in this part of the world, we're just going to do a couple more bits. So I'm going to do just a little square off there, and the same on this side. Those bits at the end, they're going to be left white. And when you see a ladybird, those bits kind of look like the eyes of the ladybird. They're actually not. The eyes would be on the head part, but those kind of look like they'd be the eyes. Right, now we're going to come back to our circle. And at the top here, just underneath the last shape we're doing, actually I'm going to go straight out. Straight out both sides. Okay, and I'm now going to curve back, but not quite at the full curve of the circle. I'm going to do it. Can you see I'm not quite going to that extremes. I'm coming in a little bit on it, but then all the way to the back there. Right, that's one half of the body, of the main part of the body. Confirm that line. We're going to do the same here. We're going to curve back, but not quite as a full circle. So it's ended up being maybe a little bit more of like an egg type shape, something like that. Okay, once you're looking at what you've done and you feel quite happy and quite confident, you can make the lines a bit darker. The thing is with drawing like this with a pencil, if you do it in the right order and you do things very lightly to begin with, you shouldn't need to use a rubber at any stage. It's only if you've pressed too darkly that you should need to use a rubber. And then for me, I never bother rubbing out all my sort of initial light lines. I just think, you know what, they're fine, they're all part of the artwork, and I probably won't see them that much by the end anyhow, so it's all good. Right, we're going to do the legs. And the ladybird has 6 legs, so we're not just going to do some straight lines. We're going to try and make the legs look really realistic. So I'm going to have my first ones coming out from this part of the body. And let's come out a little bit like that, just a little dash. And the legs, they've got all these different weird angles on ladybirds, so we're going to go up a bit there now for the next bit. And then we're going to do a few little sections for the last bit of the leg. Can you see that? So basically what you guys need to do is just a few different sections at a few different angles. If you can do it like that, brilliant. If your angles are a bit different, not a problem. Okay, from this side, we're going to come out with our first little bit, and then we're going to come up again for the next bit, which is a bit bigger. It's a slightly bigger section. And then we're going to do our smaller bits, which are almost like, I don't know, like little toes or fingers coming out, but a bit different. These insects are completely different from us. Okay, those are the first 2 legs at the front of the body. Let's do the next 2. We'll do one coming out from here now at this stage. I'm going to do the first bigger section like that. Okay, and then let's do some smaller bits coming out like that. That'll do. Right, we'll do something similar over this side. So a bigger bit coming out from the body like there. Maybe a little bit further back, yeah. And then some smaller bits. And each of these smaller bits is sort of basically triangular in shape. They're little triangles coming out. Can you see that? Okay, let's do now the back legs. And they're a bit longer. And we're going to have one coming out from the top of the body about there. It's that first bigger section, a wedge. and then the little bits coming out from it. 1, 2, 3. Let's do 3. And then we'll do the last leg coming back here, like that. And then I might do the sections coming out at a slightly different angle, a bit more like that. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I think that's about right for the ladybird for now. So the last thing we're going to do with the pencil, we're going to have a think about what the ladybird is on. And I think we should put it on a leaf. I think that's the easiest thing. So obviously the ladybird's really tiny, so the leaf's going to be really big. We're not just going to do like a tiny little leaf around it. We've got to think of the scale of things. So actually I'm just going to do the edge of the leaf. Let's start at the top, let's curve back, and I'm going to make it, I think, like an oak leaf, which has got these lovely curvy bits to it. So let's curve up and out, and then in, and then up and out, and sort of like a wibbly wobbly jelly or something, some of these lines. Okay, and then back, and that's probably about right actually. I think that'll probably do it. Yeah. Okay, something like that. Cool, right. Take a moment and we're going to now move in with the watercolours with our brushes. Rightio. Okay, let's bring in the brush, bring in the paints, and we're going to start with our background, so the leaf, and then the sort of the more distant bit behind the leaf, and then we'll do the ladybird itself after that. Okay, so let's get some bit of water on the brush. And so with watercolours, of course, we need water. They're really dry paints, so you can't use them just like they are. Let's go in on your yellow, and let's just have a look at that. And now maybe let's add a bit of green. Now you might be able to see that the watercolour set, it's quite hard to see what the colours are, isn't it? Because some of them are so dark. So actually what we're best off doing is having a bit of paper that we can just try things out on. And that way we can see what colour we've got before we put it onto our painting. And this is really useful with almost any painting or anything you do, just to have a bit of paper on the side to try things out on. So we've got some yellow mixed with some green for now. Let's have a look at that on the paper. Yeah, okay, I think that's about right. You know what, I might mix in just a bit more water, and then I think it will just move a bit more smoothly on my painting. Okay, I think I'm happy with that colour. So wait until you are happy with the colour. Now what we're going to do to start with, and this is, you need to use 100% of your focus, we're going to go around the ladybird really carefully. So we're not going over any part of it. Can you see I've started to go around the leg, around the body, around that leg, and I'm just going to go around the whole thing to start with this light green. So up over there. And it's better to go too far out, like to start like that, for example, if you're not feeling too confident, and then you can always come in closer to the body. But just do your absolute very best to not go over the body if you can. But also just don't stress about anything, because it's never worth getting too stressed. Right, I'm going to do this a bit more quickly now, but that's because I've had many years to practice. You guys should take your time and just go round really carefully. So I'm carefully going around the legs, carefully going around that back leg, this one, and then the curve of the body, of the abdomen. Okay, that's all good. Right, let's now do a similar outline for the edge of our leaf so we can see where that comes to. And then let's go up along our top line of the border. Basically, by doing this, we can see exactly afterwards where we want all of our paintwork to go. Right, we've got it. Okay, I'm going to water up our colour a bit more. I might add a little bit more paint, just so it's not too watery. Okay, I'm now going to fill in, essentially, the area all around the ladybird. Of course, not over the ladybird, because that's going to be red, and if we start with green, then it's going to look a bit strange. So I'm going to fill it in, but I'm going to leave a few bits white as just little highlights. So I'm mostly going to fill it in. Can you see at the moment with the paint, I've got quite a lot of water on it now. And that's quite good to have quite a lot of water because it makes it easier to cover big areas. It's going to leave just a few little bits white. And those are little highlights where the light of the sun is hitting the leaf a little bit. Yeah, and it helps us along a bit because it means we don't have to cover absolutely the whole thing. So I might leave a little bit at the top of that bit there white. And actually, let's think about it. Let's do the same sort of thing down here. So I'm going to leave that top stretch white, and the light's just shining down on that. Right, you might be able to see, I think I'm running out of paint. So I need to get more water, and I probably need to get a bit more paint as well, because otherwise if I just keep adding water, eventually it will be just water. Okay, so I've added a bit more water and paint. Right, that's, let me think. If anything, that's too watery, but basically what that means is I can use what's already on the paper for quite a long time now, and I can just spread it around. So I'm going to keep on dabbing into that. So if you do a bit where you add too much water, don't stress, don't worry, but you can just keep on going back to it and keep on spreading it around, and it will still dry quite quickly. Can you see that's nearly dry now actually? Okay, coming up the back, and just leave another little bit of a highlight down at the back there. That looks alright. Cool, okay, that's our first layer of green. And we're going to do maybe 1 or 2 more layers of green. So let's just get a little bit more water on the brush. Right, we've already got a green, the light green, so probably what we can do for our next layer of green is just make it a bit darker. So let's get a bit more of the pure green, mix it in there. Yeah, okay, should we have a look at that on the bit of paper? Yeah, that's pretty good. That's a nice dark green. Maybe I'm going to just mix in a tiny bit of blue and see what happens. Maybe a bit more. So sometimes if you want to make an even darker green, you can mix in a bit of blue, and that takes it more towards like a sort of a forest green. Can you picture like a forest tree with trees like that? And it's a nice dark green and sometimes almost closer to blue. Okay, I'm going to use what we've got now. So I think we've mixed up quite a good colour. And to start with, I'm going to come along this line of the leaf as well. Again, all the way along, all the way back to there. Yeah, it's pretty good. Okay, and now let's go along with that green to the edges of our border. Okay, cool. Right, I'm going to get a bit more water so it moves a bit more easily, and the more water you add, the more easily it moves. But obviously if you add too much water, it's just going to go everywhere. So there's a happy medium, and there almost always is a happy medium. Right, so I've now got this area to fill in with this green, and I'm pretty much going to fill it in because actually this area is much more in shadow than on top of the leaf. It's kind of like this is the background to the leaf. Okay, if you leave a few bits of white, that's fine. Looks quite nice. And the thing is with watercolour, if you want a bit to be white, you basically need to leave it white, because normally there isn't a white paint in your paints. And it's very difficult to go over something with watercolour and make it lighter, which is why with this we're starting with the light things and then we're slowly going a bit darker, because now that I've done that dark green, it would be very difficult to make it a lighter green. With other paints you can do that, but with watercolour not so easily, so you've got to really think about the order of things with watercolour, and I always start with light paint and work towards darker paint. And if you want to have some white bits, you need to leave them white and leave it as just the paper itself. Okay, going to use this same green, and we're going to do a little bit of a shadow underneath the ladybird. So I'm going to start along its back here and just come still along the outside, so I'm not going into the ladybird itself. and then along and up there, and there. So I'm still just going very carefully along the edge. Okay, so this bottom bit down here, the shadow's on this side. We're imagining the light's coming down from there, the sun's shining down brightly. So I can just do a little shadow going back from those legs to the body, back from that leg to the body there, maybe the antennae. But otherwise, most of the shadow's on this underside. So I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger, and then have a little shadow coming underneath that leg. And I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, a little shadow coming to the end of that leg, shadow coming to the end of that leg, maybe a bit more up there, a bit of shadow coming out where the antennae is. Right, you know what, that's probably about right. I think maybe if we try and do more, we might make it a little bit too muddy and complicated. I think we can probably just leave that there. So let's put the brush in the pot and let's wash it off nice and thoroughly. Wash, 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 swish, swish, swish. Okay, we're going to do the red of the ladybird next. And the red is only on this main part of the body, and then these two bits are actually sort of more blackish, so we'll do those afterwards. Okay, so hopefully I've washed off all the green from the brush, because we don't really want the red to have green mixed into it, because then it would make a weird sort of brown kind of colour. So let's go in on our red, and let's use another section of the palette. So that section's got the green in, so we can't put the red in there. So we need to use another section to mix up our red. Okay, mix in enough water. You always need enough water. Okay, let's have a go. So what I'm going to do, and this is really important, for those of you who feel as though you can do this, I'm not going to go quite to the very edge with this red. Can you see? I'm leaving just a little bit white at the very edge. And that will just help the ladybird to stand out a bit more against the background. So the same here, I'm not quite going to go to the very edge. I'm going to go round for now, all the way up to there. Okay, same at this top bit. I'm going to leave a little bit of the top of this back bit of the body. I'm going to leave that white there. Okay, now we've got this line down the middle, our original line. I'm going to go along that with the brush. Cool. And then I'm going to go above and try and leave a bit white there. Can you see? And then, okay, let's have a think. We're going to do a big highlight on this part of the body because the light's shining down onto that part of the body more than this part. So I'm going to do a bit of an outline like that. And that's where there's the highlight. That's where the light's shining down the most brightly. So around that, I can do more of my red. Can you see? I've just left that white, and I'm not gonna do any painting on it at all because that's a nice bright highlight. But on this lower part, this is all red because the light's not hitting this so much. And whenever I do a picture, I'm always trying to think, where is there light and where is there shadow? And that helps me to make things look a bit more realistic. Okay, that's pretty good. I need to give that a few moments to dry. If I try and do more on it now, the card will start to fray a little bit and come away, which is not what we want. So let's just give that a moment to dry. But while it's drying, I'm going to mix in a little bit of brown. So you need to find a brown first, and then just test, is that brown? Yeah. Okay, I'm going to mix in a bit of a brown to the red, and we're going to use this just to make a little bit of the red area a bit darker. Let's have a look at that on our bit of separate paper. Yeah, that's okay. I might make it a little bit darker still. Yeah, maybe something like that. Okay, right, I'm going to use this brown now to come along the very back of the ladybird. Not quite going over that white. Can you see I've left that? I'm going to use it to come up along this top line. Okay. And then along the back, and then not quite going over my white edge. I'm going to come along that line. And then, okay, let's come along all the way along this edge again with that brown. all the way to the top. And then I'm going to use it to do just a few more lines in this lower part. But then the lines get a bit thinner as we go up towards the middle. You know what? That'll do. Let's leave it there. Okay. Well, we'll leave that section there. We've got a few more little bits still to do. Okay, washing off the brush, washing off the brush. That's all the red that we need to do. So let's wash off the brush nice and thoroughly. And can you see I wipe it on the edge of the jar to get off the excess. Right, we're now going to do the black parts, but actually, you know what's really interesting? Often with bits of anything that are black or really dark, often they've still got some colour in them. And I think these areas actually have a bit of blue in them. So I'm going to mix in a bit of blue up here. So I've got a bit of blue and I've got a bit of black mixed together. Let's test that out on a bit of paper. Let's have a look at that. That's quite interesting, isn't it? So it's sort of bluish black. Yeah. Maybe it's a bit too dark for now, so let's just get a little bit of water and we'll water it down a bit. Let's test that again. Yeah, okay, I think that's about right to start with. Let's have another quick look. Yeah, okay, so you don't want too much water on your brush at this stage. So if you think you've got too much water when you're testing it, just wipe off a little bit of that excess on the edge of something. Could be your palette, could be the water pot. Right, we're going to do this section first. And all I need to do first is draw around, or paint around, these two little squares. Do you remember we did those two little squares? Those need to stay white, because they're like these little strange eyes on the ladybird. But otherwise, for the whole of the rest of that section, I'm going to come up the edges there and there. For the whole of the rest of it, we can use this blue. And we're just going to fill it in. So go really carefully. I think I've still got too much water on there, so I'm just going to wipe off a bit of that water. Okay, right, that's about right. Yeah, that's about right. Okay, now for the head, we're going to do the whole of the head with this bluish. If you want to, again, it's pretty tricky as we get to these smaller areas, you can leave a little bit white at the edge of the head, but don't worry too much about it. Okay, using the same blue, we're now going to do some really tricky bits because we're going to do the legs and the antennae. So for the antennae, just do a nice thin line with that blue coming back. Nice thin line coming out there. Okay, for the legs, all we need to do, we don't need to sort of imagine we're filling anything in, we just need to do a brush stroke along, and then remember we've got the little section, so it's dot, dot, dot. That's it, that leg's done. And actually little bits of white on it work quite well because they look like highlights. Okay, next one down, let's do this one. So dash, and then dot, dot, dot. Done, the leg's done. This back one, dash, dot, dot, dot. Lovely. Let's get a bit more paint, just a little bit. Okay, this one, dash, dot, dot, dot. When you're moving around your bit of paper, you need to think about where you've just put some paint. So it was very close there, wasn't it? I might have smudged through this wet paint, so I just need to keep a tiny bit of my mind thinking about where I've put the paint and try and make sure that I don't accidentally put my hand in it and smudge through it. So dash, dot, dot, dot. And now lastly this one, dash, dot, dot, dot. That's fine, isn't it? Right, using the same blue, we're going to do the spots on the ladybird, and then we'll make bits of them a bit darker when it comes to it. So firstly, it's got quite a big spot initially at the top of the back there. So let's just use the blue to do that. This is going to be a 6-spot ladybird. But actually that one doesn't count, so I get, yeah, okay, maybe it's a 7-spot. Right, okay, let's do one up here, and actually this one is going to go slightly into the white. That's fine, that's about right. And then we're going to do the equivalent one down on this side. Don't worry if they're slightly different shapes and sizes, that's fine, that will do. Right, now we're going to do one down here, and one over here. And whatever you do on one side, you need to do on the other, because it's what's called symmetrical. It's the same on both sides. Okay, the last two spots. One is out here, and actually that's more of a line rather than a spot, because it's down the curve of the body. So we can't see the full circle. All we can see at that angle is a bit of a line. Okay, and over here, the same again, a bit more of a line, whereas the ones on the top, they're more like circles, because they're on the very top of the body, and so we can see them a bit more fully, a bit more clearly. Right, ladybirds, we're nearly there. You've done so well. Our last thing is going to be to darken up our paint a little bit, and just do a little bit darker in a couple of little places. So let's get a little bit of water first. We're going to go in on the black, so locate the black on your palettes and mix that into the blue. Just mix it in. And as ever, let's try out on our separate bit of paper first and see what we've made, what sort of colour. Now, is that dark enough? I'm asking myself. Maybe not quite. I'm going to take a little bit more black, mix it in, a little bit more, mix it in. That's probably about right. Okay, cool. So with this colour, first things first, I'm going to go round the edge of this part of the body. So for this bit of the painting, you really don't want too much water on the brush. So if you start doing this, you think, oh, geez, there's too much water, just wipe off a bit on the edge of the palette. So I'm going to go around the edge, up over there, can you see? But I'm leaving the white bits white. And then up top, and slightly some sort of outlining the whole thing. Right, now I've got to think, there's actually a bit of a highlight on this, so I'm going to just do a bit of a line like that, coming up almost the middle. On the underside there, I can do more that's darker. Then actually on this lower part, I'm going to do all that black. Okay, but I'm leaving that bit blue, because that's a bit lighter, because it's got the light shining on it. Okay, we're going to do a similar thing with the head. Let's do a little bit of an outline of it. Okay. And then actually I'm going to do that line up the middle again. And I'm just going to do this lower part black, and leave that bit blue. That's got some light on it. Okay, the very last few things. Let's just do the top parts of the legs a bit darker. So that, and just really take care. And that. But let's not worry about the lower parts, because I think we risk losing the detail there. And the very last thing we're going to do a line on the very outside of the body. Really careful. This bit's well in shadow. So we just need to define it a bit more clearly. Just on this lower part, not on the top part, because that's got more light on it. This lower part's more in shadow. Maybe coming up there as well, there might be a bit more shadow just there. Right. Okay, last thing with the black. I'm just going to do the spots on this lower part of the body. 1, 2, 3, and then half of that. And I think that's it, because these ones will be a bit lighter again, because the light's shining on them. Okay, you know what? I think we're going to leave our ladybirds there. I'm sure you've done a fantastic job. Watercolour's really tricky. And even for me at my age, I still find it quite tricky. So whatever you've done, I'm sure you've done amazingly. And yeah, I really can't wait to see what you've come up with for this, for each of your paintings. So good luck with it, and I'll see you all soon.